Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
Dave, have you got your pumpkin ready?
I do.
We've got pumpkin beer, but have you got an actual pumpkin?
This will be about as Halloween as this household gets.
I'll give it a couple of years. You'll be lighting pumpkins and putting them on the doorstep and all sorts. This is Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast, episode number 66. And we're talking about pumpkins because we're going to be drinking some pumpkin beer in a little while as part of our hype or tripe section. We've got 3 pumpkin beers, which we're very much looking forward to drinking, aren't we, Dave?
Yeah, we are. It sort of felt quite well timed. I know they're not, I don't think they're a beer style that you love. I don't mind them, but that said, I like one and then possibly that's it. So it'd be interesting to see what Abbeydale have managed to do with them, because they've done 2 different varieties off their standard beer to make this series, which is quite a long running series, or at least the original iteration is. So yeah, it'd be interesting. It's basically a beer style that pops up for about 3 weeks and then goes away again, unless you're in America, where I think it's a bit more popular.
And we're talking about the pumpkin spice beers, of course. You get your pumpkin spice coffees at this time of year in all of the coffee outlets. We've got pumpkin spice beers, 3 different ones, and we will be enjoying those later on, hopefully. We've also got a very, very busy episode with an award winner on the podcast, Tim Weaver, the brand weaver. He recently orchestrated a complete overhaul of the branding for the Vale Brewery and then won an award for it as well. So we'll be speaking to Tim later on. I was on a farm recently in Cheshire. The farm belonged to Spitting Feathers. It was part of their barn sessions events that they do, which you heard about on a previous episode. And I spoke to the guys down there, and you can hear what we had to say a little bit later as well. Also got tried and tested and all the usual features, kicking off as we usually do with Brew to Me. Where are you going on your travels this time, Dave?
I am going to the New Forest, and this was quite a fun one actually, because as we often say, we sort of peek behind the curtain. We're always on the lookout for new breweries, and there's various ways we track people down. And I was just having a little bit of a stalemate in terms of finding people. So I started hunting and found this brewery, Dead Duck Brewery. Well, off the 2 of us, you initially got a phone call.
Did, yeah, of course I did, yeah, that's right, I remember now. We'd given him a phone number, but we'd given him my number, and he rang up and he said, "Is that Dave?" And I said, "Yeah, it is Dave." But it was the wrong Dave, it was you he was after, not me.
Yeah, he was very delighted to have been tracked down and was sort of thrilled to be able to showcase his beers on the podcast. I would just say he also said he was already a listener. So if you are out there and you are a brewery and you think, cool, they haven't shown my beers yet, just get in touch. We will always have to showcase breweries we've never tried before. So if, like I say, if there's someone out there who's just listening thinking, come on, maybe I should do that, do it. Now, Paul, unfortunately, he's been very busy and he's been down in Cornwall recently and he's just got back from there. He had the time to send me the beers. Unfortunately, he's not had time to send us a little bit of audio saying a bit more about him and the brewery. But what I can tell you from his website is that he started out in his kitchen in the South London flat. Now he's a microbrewery down in the New Forest. So there's obviously been a bit of a move somewhere along the line. It's one of those, again, I think if you're down in that area, you probably know more about their beers because he has got them in pubs and shops and whatnot in the local area, but it just hasn't translated to going out wider yet, if he even wants to. He very kindly sent me 3 beers, a New England IPA, a hazy grapefruit IPA, and the beer I'm going to try, because I said to him, is there one you'd particularly like me to try? And he said, try Nightwood Oak, which is his chocolate porter.
Nice. Perfect sort of beer now. The nights are drawing in and the clocks have changed and all that.
Yeah, it really is actually. I've just started the evenings. I'm starting to hanker after a porter or a stout for the night time rather than a pale or something. Okay. I would say it's quite a traditional porter in the sense of it's getting its chocolate flavours not from lactose or anything. It'd be getting the flavours from malt grains. Just on the website it says the chocolate porter is packed full of 5 different historic grains. I think you summed it up right there, Dave. It's exactly what you want for this time of year. It's a little bit of cocoa, a little bit of roastiness, not loads. I would say medium to not thin, but I wouldn't say it's a really full-bodied beer. It's probably medium.
What was the ABV on it?
5. But yeah, I can't really fault it. It's one of those beers which it does exactly what it says it will. It's not full-on sweet chocolate or anything like that. It's more sort of that. It's more that line, cocoa chocolate rather than milk chocolate.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what you expected, actually.
Yeah, spot on for this evening. Nice drop. Looking forward to seeing what he does with a pale as well. And as I say, unfortunately, this time around, no audio from Paul. But if people do want to check him out, Dead Duck Brewery is on Instagram. Just having a quick look. There's plenty of there's pubs in Fordingbridge, Lyndhurst, Salisbury, Ringwood, all stocking his beers. So if you're in the New Forest area, you can probably track him down.
And just talking about audio as you were there, it's worth saying that originally we were going to have a chat with Ben from Only With Love in Lewis on this episode, but because we've got so much going on, we've actually decided to release Only With Love chat as a special bonus episode next week, so you're kind of getting 2 for the price of 1 this time. Can't be bad, can it?
And Ben was, as listeners will find out in a few days' time, exceptionally good value. A really interesting person to listen to, and one who we've had it before where you get brewers and the passion comes through, but this is someone who primarily sells beer. His passion for selling beer and Only With Love and the product and everything Only With Love do was very evident.
And he really does know the business inside out as well. So look out for that landing. In the meantime, I'm going to do my brew to me now, and I am going to Runcorn in Cheshire for a brewery called Small Batch Brewing. So this brewery originally started in about 2021, I think, and then went on a little bit of a hiatus for various reasons, which you'll hear shortly. But this beer is one of their core range. They've had quite a lot of different beers out already, actually. This is one of their core range. And as you might imagine, small batch, they do very small batches of beer, which is why they do lots of different beers. They started out on a 50-litre kit. Demand grew and grew, but they're still going to keep it small, keep true to their ethos of small batch. Now, I'm really looking forward to this because I'm desperately want to have a drink. So I'm going to crack it open.
They definitely ring a bell for me, but I would have to check Untapped just to... I don't think I've had any, but it definitely rings a bell.
Yeah, maybe you've seen them on the socials and stuff. And look, I even got a glass, Dave, as well. How about that?
Ooh, well, you do like a nice glass.
I do. So this is Fruit Salad Waterfall. It's a New England IPA, 5.5%. It claims to be giving me off peach, apricot and mango, and I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I mean, when you're setting your beer out saying it's fruit salad, it's very definite flavours you'd want to be picking up out of it, isn't there?
Lovely.
Nice glass, terrible pour.
Nice glass. The colour of the beer looks great. It's that kind of not vivid yellow, but just sort of subdued, hazy yellow. I like that. It looks like a New England, and with that foam on top there, so soft. That is very good. I like that.
Would it taste vaguely fruit salady?
Yeah, it would. It tastes very fruit salady. I don't usually take that many gulps in one go, but I wanted that. And yeah, that is very good. Seems to me we've come across quite a few breweries in Cheshire recently. I don't know whether that's just us finding them or whether more breweries are appearing in the area. I don't know. But there has been a few we've come across recently.
On our previous episode, Swindon, not an area we'd ever thought of, and lo and behold, thriving scene. And yeah, I mean, Cheshire was Weekend Project, wasn't it? And
that's right, yes, of course.
They're still springing up everywhere. And at the time of recording, just to date it, there's now going to be a penny off craft brew pints in pubs, isn't there?
This is right, yeah, that'll make all the difference, won't it, when you're spending £8 for a pint?
$7.99 instead of £8. That's going to go far, isn't it?
Right, let's have a listen to what Dan's got to say. And this is really interesting because Dan puts it all on the line with this audio and tells us all about his experience from starting brewing to where he is now.
Hello, my name's Dan. I am the owner and head brewer of Small Batch Brewing Co. We started in 2020, the end of COVID. It was just basically just to try and see if a home brewer could go commercial and sell his beer. I've always worked a full-time job. I'll always will. So basically we started on a 50-litre system and a 50-litre fermenter just to get some cans out there and a keg here and there just to see what the feedback was. Well, we went from probably 200 followers on Instagram to about 3,000 followers within 6 months. The orders just kept coming in. We had to increase our fermenter sizes. So we had a 50-litre system, an 80-litre system and two 150-litre systems and just a 50-litre kettle. So it became apparent our bottleneck was the brewing side, so we ended up buying a Brew Tools B150, which was obviously 150 litres. We just couldn't keep up with production, so we made the bold decision to sell my house and for me to move in with the wife, put the house on the market, sold the house. Yeah, crazy decision, but this is what we did. So we sold the house. We got some investment just before then for new fermenters, 4x 300 litre ones, uni tanks, and an industrial chiller. That went into storage. I think we only used one of them for Knutsford Beer Festival. And then we kind of just, everything went up. Grain went up, hops went up, unit space rent went up. Everything was just all up in the air. And we kind of just ended up sitting on it. My personal job got a bit crazy, and obviously that pays the bills. So we trying to concentrate on a new job that I was in and trying to learn that, as well as just trying to see what we were going to do with the brewery. We just took longer than we wanted to. We were looking about 15, 16 months before we decided to start looking for unit space. The cost of unit space was just crazy. They wanted £3,000 a month, and we didn't have a lot of money left from this house sale, and yeah, it was just all crazy. So there was a bit of a blip where we thought we were going to just call it a day, sell the kit, and just concentrate on work and stuff like that. But after speaking to the accountant on what the business owed us and speaking to the tap rooms, because we weren't brewing for 15 months, but they were still messaging us asking when we were going to start back up. So we decided to give it another go. Long story short, ended up spending every single penny I had in savings, maxing my credit cards out, and buying a brewing system to go with the fermenters from the same company. Started the licenses again in the new house. Couldn't find unit space that was cheap enough, so we built a purpose-built like garden room that would fit all our kit in. So if you look on our Instagram, it's literally 4 meters by 4 meters. We've completely rammed everything in. Yeah, it's a tight space, but it seems to be working up to now. So we got the new kit, we went live, we were trying to put kegs in the car and trying to put cans in the car. It was just a nightmare. So we ended up selling the car, literally selling everything, and bought a van. So obviously we're in debt with the van as well. So we basically sold my house, bought new kit, bought a van. Just escalated, to be honest. But everything seems to be selling and everyone wants to make orders. So we've got a web shop now with the cans on. Obviously we don't, because of our volumes, we don't really make a lot on our keg sales. It's can sales that we make our money on, and obviously we need to cover the cost of the van and pay back the money for the new brewing kit. So, you know, the more people that can go through the website, the better. Because I work full time, trying to get the cans and everything canned and kegged on time and get them on the web shop is a little bit difficult. We're probably doing 18-hour days. I get up at 4:30 for work, and I don't sit down till 8:30 at night after we've done everything in work and in the brewery. We started with our core beers from last time, Fruit Salad Waterfall, which was our best seller. And we started one cut with a new 5.3 beer called Sleepers for Dreamers. Well, that sold really, really well. As soon as I put it on the site, it sold out. Kegs sold out. People were ringing for more. So that's going to be one of our main, alongside Fruit Salad Waterfall, that's going to be one of our main ones. We made Saturation 7, which I know a few people have asked if we're going to make that again, so that's on stock at the moment. That's the big brother of Fruit Salad Waterfall. Basically, it's the same recipe, just pimped up to 7% and a different yeast. Became its own beer within its right, and yeah, it's selling well. We do some others, Between Worlds, Centuries. There's a few new ones coming out. Construct, which we've had some good feedback. There's a new New Zealand IPA coming out called Lost Frequency. There's quite a few coming out. I've already agreed to do Chester Carriage Shed next year. I'm really looking forward to that because I've been to the last few and it's brilliant. It's a good day. It'd be nice to be on the opposite side of the table serving everybody. So yeah, it's from that now. It's just that's where we are. You know, we're just trying to increase production. I'm looking to change my job in the same company, which allows me to have more time off, which allows me to brew more and get more stock on the website, get more cans and kegs out. So spent all my money and I've got no time left. So yeah, it's kind of it's a bit crazy, to be honest with you. But this is where we are and this is what we're doing. So I think if everyone can support us, and you know, even if you just came to the website or got some cans from one of our retailers, and we sell to Bent's garden centres and all the way around Chester and Manchester, and there was one in London, and I think they're going to start ordering again. And yeah, hopefully we can just spread our wings a little bit further afield and obviously do some local festivals. We've just bought a little small marquee and we'd love to start hitting the festivals and serving there. So, but yeah, it's just time and money, I think, for us. So we're pretty much hand to mouth with everything at the moment. We're just pestering people to pay us, and it's uncertain times, but this is what we're doing, and we love it. Thanks for listening.
Well, having listened to that, I think you'd agree. He's told us a lot of information there that we perhaps don't usually get, or the money he's spent, the money he owes, upgrading a kit, getting a van, selling his house. It's all here laid bare. Plaudits for doing that, because that's really interesting and a real honest interpretation of what goes on behind the scenes with a lot of these small breweries. People listening to this and to punters, it's just some cans on a shelf or a beer in a pub. But as we've said many times, there's so much more going on behind the scenes, and Dan really highlighted that there, really brought that to the fore. So thanks a lot for that. And no, I'm really excited to have more of his beers. He sent 2. He sent Saturation 7, which is another New England, but this one is 7%. So almost sort of touching up to double IPA territory. But yeah, as for the beer, that goes down very nicely. Yeah, I mean, what more do you say about a New England? When a New England does what it's supposed to do,
it's not much the same as my beer. It's done exactly what it's supposed to do. You can't...
There's not that much to say, is there?
No, because we're talking to people who already drink a lot of beer and know what it tastes like. So you can't teach people to suck eggs in that sense and go, oh, you should be getting this, that and the other. If you know what a porter tastes like and you know what a New England IPA tastes like, it sounds like we've got 2 beers which will do exactly that. So if you want a porter, this is a good porter. If you want a New England IPA, you've got a good New England IPA.
It's almost more to say when the beers don't meet the standard that you would like them to, and they're lacking in some way, but this certainly isn't. It really isn't.
If they miss the brief or the flavours go wrong or something like that, then you're right. It's almost a bit more, there's more to discuss, but
if you're getting off flavours or anything like that, or something you don't expect, then there's more to say. But a New England one, it fulfills a brief, and with the porter as well. It sounds like we've got 2 bang-on beers there from 2 really interesting breweries. So, Dave, what have you most been enjoying drinking since our last episode?
Well, it's always nice to keep in touch with people who have been on previous, and one of them is Phil Sissons from Simple Things Fermentations up in Glasgow, and there's always some interesting stuff on their mailer. And it was about 6 weeks ago with some of the beers that they had and what was coming out. One of them was a peated pale ale, which immediately took my fancy. Very nice, really enjoyed it. And then we got into the autumnal stuff. And there was a rot beer, which I'm yet to have, and a Rausch beer. Now, long-time listeners will know a Rausch beer, I absolutely love it. We even had Schlenkler on. Matthias talked to everything about smoke beer. It was one of my favourite episodes. And the biggest compliment that I can give Phil and his Rausch beer is if I blind tasted them, it would be hard to tell the difference.
Wow.
So good. I even bought some Schlenkler, having had it probably a weekend after, just to have that comparison. And it does stand up. But there is a difference, as you would expect. The German one would just be a little bit sweeter, but not by much. If you open the can and open the bottle at the same time, that nose, that beachy, smoky, delicious nose is pretty much identical, and the taste is very close. If you like that kind of style of beer, I'd say it's the best Rausch beer in the UK, hands down. And if there's some other alternative ones out there which I don't know about, people can let me know, and I'll certainly seek them out and find them. But I know Torside smoke stuff is obviously very, very good. But Simple Things, Rausch beer, if you can get hold of it and you like that kind of beer, you'll be in heaven.
It's interesting because I see these emails backwards and forwards between you and Simple Things, and the minute he's got anything interesting out, you want to get hold of it.
I think it's just because he explores very different, like not really wacky styles, but really different, just different takes on things. The selection of beers I got this time around from him that I bought are easily the best so far, and it's always been a high standard, but the stuff I've had this time is really, really good.
And it's also interesting for listeners to realise that once we've had somebody on the podcast, we do go back to them and try their beers again and again. We don't just say, right, they've been on, that's it, we've done them. We do like to stick with them. Well, on the last episode, your tried and tested, if I remember correctly, was a New England IPA. My tried and tested this time is a New England IPA. And this is from a brewery you're not going to have heard of, I don't think many people will have heard of, called the Piggy Brewing Company. And this brewery is in France. And I got the beer from France when we were over there, brought a few cans back, 330ml cans. Pulled one out of the fridge just the other night, 6.1% New England. From the minute you open the can, you could smell it. It smelled amazing, so fruity, really well balanced. Drank a little bit, thought, oh my goodness, why didn't I get more of this? It was amazing.
I was going to say, did you buy just one can of it?
Just one. Well, you never quite know what you're buying when you've never heard of the brewery, do you? So I bought one can of it, but I did buy some other cans of theirs. This was called Eroica. The Piggy Brewing Company, but it was just everything you want in New England to be. Soft, fruity, hazy, just great. So if you ever see anything from the Piggy Brewing Company, get hold of it. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Is that just Piggy as in P-I-G-G-Y?
It is, yeah.
Okay, nice.
Get in touch with us on Twitter and Instagram at Daftaboutcraft1.
A few weeks ago, myself, Dave D, and Cam from Beer Guide Worldwide were out and about with the microphone, and here's what we recorded. We are in Cheshire.
To be precise, village of Weaverton. We have been to Spitting Feathers Brewery, which is based on a lovely farm. And today, the reason for our visit here is Brew Barn Sessions. Once a month, on Saturday, the brewery opens up its barn, invites over 100 people for 4 hours to drink unlimited cask and keg beers that they make here on farm, have some pizza and have a wonderful time.
Back in March, we had the guys from Spitting Feathers on the podcast, and now we're here at the source. Been in the treehouse.
Yes.
We've seen the pigs,
Yes.
the horses, the animals. We've had a great time in the bar as well. Pizza.
Both myself and Dave have been engaged in some behind-the-bar action as well.
A few pints.
Indeed. Someone you just got to lend a hand and help the people when there is a need. And because there is a lot of thirsty people out there today, we have helped out. And now from the cold store emerges Rick, which is one of the amazing brewers in this place. Come have a chat with us, Rick.
So regular podcast listeners know that Rick was actually on our podcast back in March, and now we're here in the wild, as it were.
Yeah, now you've got to see the place for all it's worth. Weather's been a bit on and off, but it is what it's like for us here, to be honest.
But the great thing is that literally Spitting Feathers won an award yesterday, 2 days ago.
Yeah, yesterday morning, actually, yeah. 3 of the beers won awards. First off, our English IPA, Repetitive Strain Injury, that won bronze in the cask IPA. 2 of our brand new beers of 2024 won gold. RWE, which is Rested When Expectant. We don't make our beers easy to say, by the way. Rested When Expectant, that's our oatmeal stout. Won gold in the dark beer category. And MPH, which is Mouth Pans Hops, won overall gold winner in the pale ale category. So officially at the moment we are now producing the best pale ale in the Northwest according to SIBA, which isn't too shabby.
That must make you feel pretty good.
It does. I mean, you don't necessarily do these things to win awards, but it's great to have a reminder that you are doing as well as, or sometimes better than other people.
And as a long-time fan, supporter and drinker, and I had a few of them myself today, I can vouch, guarantee and tell you honestly, dope.
I mean, the beers are tasting very good, but it must give you a sense of sort of validation when you're winning awards for the beers that you're making.
It does, in particular when it's a new beer. For our 2 new beers, a new range launched last year, and these 2 are the new beers for this year, and they both won gold. So it just goes to show we often think about our, most tried and tested recipes being the ones that everybody loves. But when you make something new from the ground up, which is what they were, they aren't similar to any of our other beers.
And on that note, I just want to ask you, because the 2 of the gold winners being the modern style beers, there was a dark beer and a light beer.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about each of those, what they are, maybe what goes into it?
Well, the stout, the oatmeal stout, both of the beers, we couldn't put more ingredients into them if we tried. There is so much dark malt in that stout. We can't actually fit any more into the mash tun. And we roast the cacao nibs, we split the vanilla pods ourselves, and then the mouthpans hops, 8 different American hops in there.
8
in one beer. Double dry hop. We've never made a beer like that before, ever, and it's won an award. So we've learned things and they've clearly worked out.
Yeah, so is this the way forward? Are you going to be sort of filling every beer with loads of hops going forward?
I don't know if anybody does a beer with 8 hops, by the way. 8 different hops.
The Spit and Feathers do.
Well, I don't think Mal, the owner, would really appreciate it if we did that. I like I was saying to you before, actually, upstairs, I'm quite a big craft beer drinker myself. So I go out there and learn and take notes, come back, and I just think to myself, can I do that myself?
So the other one, the lighter beer, is...
Mouthpans hops. We refrain from calling it an IPA because it's a 5%. So we officially called it a double dry hopped American Pale. Yes, it's unfined, which is unusual for us in cask because we usually make traditionally clear beers. But we put no finings in it. It's still gluten-free. Still gluten-free, but it's hazy. And you don't see too many of those out in the wild.
The majority of your beers are not hazy, are they? That's the thing.
All of our casks are clear traditional style beers. But we did try... The beer that we spoke about in the previous podcast, Overtime in Keg, that was a sort of a test beer to see if we could make gluten-free vegan beers hazy and not detract from certain elements of the style. This time we did it in cask. It's essentially, as you've tasted it, it's a keg beer, but it's in cask. But our opinion is that the freshness and the fruitiness of the hops, they do a little bit more in cask if it's fresh and in brilliant condition.
100%.
That's what comes through, and I think that's why it's won the award, because there's so much hop in there, but it's just the right amount to give you that fruity edge.
So going forwards, what do you want to do in the next few months?
Shouting from the background, Depa, Depa, Depa.
There's certain things that if we do, just nobody would buy them from us. This is the thing. We have to bridge the gap between our core customers and new customers. Mouthpans hops, funnily enough, we sold droves of it through our 2 pubs. But for us to convince most of our customers, like I was saying before, to buy a hazy beer with 8 different American hops in it, that's a struggle. Even with us being operating for 20 years, that's a journey you've got to make slowly. So, funnily enough, with our What Three Words range, we don't actually have a beer that is classed as a best bitter, which is strange for a brewery like us. We don't have a best bitter, technically. So I want to do one. But it'll have a funky name, it'll have funky artwork. It will, like I say, bridge the gap between old and new. And that's what we want to do.
Well, the latest in the range, actually, which has just come out, is the Red Ale, right?
Cheshire Red Ale, that's the last new beer of the year. And you tried that today. We have some things in the works, maybe a honey porter, possibly. We have our own honey on the farm here. I'm sure they've told you that. So we have our hive around the back. So we have honey that we've harvested, and I want to put it in a dark. So we will see.
What is amazing is that even though your beers are sort of rooted in tradition, there's always different stuff going on, and you're always thinking how to change it up, switch it up, and do different stuff.
That's the thing. I think we were saying before about certain traditional breweries that may only do a couple of beers and they'll perfect them and then they'll just be known for that. We have quite a few beers on our roster here. Our recipe book is quite thick. Some of them go and don't come back. Today we brought back some classics, as I'm sure you've seen. Some people never seen them before.
There was a golden ale with a touch of honey in it. I enjoyed that very much. Thank you.
The beauty of our brew barns and our events is that we can test things on people. Use people as our lab rats.
Kind of judge it by the queue. There's 3 cask pumps at the bar in the barn, and you can kind of see which side of the queue it forms on whichever the badge on the cask is. And it was really, because I did pour a few pints and I kind of noticed that the people were going left, right, middle, right, this is the side I want. And then the queue kind of formed itself on the back of that, and then people just kind of went, oh yeah, that's the one.
You do see people taking the journey. A lot of people, they turn up and they just go for thirst quencher, and we have a huge queue on thirst quencher. Yeah. But people, they slowly start to edge towards other beers that they may not have seen before.
It must be quite sort of enlightening for you, because you can see how people are going, what they're liking. So this is like a testing ground almost, these events.
Yeah, it's quite unusual in our situation. I mean, obviously, you have tap rooms all over the country now where the brewery is in the place where all the benches are. We don't have a 7-day-a-week license here, so where we are now drinking is where we work each day. We have our meetings upstairs and things like that. It's nice to sort of invite people along. It's nice to see people's reactions to beers and talk to them like we have today.
People will say, oh yeah, I like this, I don't like that, but when you see them literally drinking it for the first time, that is what you want to see, their instant reaction.
And just go on, give this a go, and they're like, Oh, yeah, that's all right, this. Hey, hold on a minute. Let's meet 2, 3 more, 5, 6, 7 sips. By the time they finish talking to you, the glass is empty, you go, I'll have another. And that's what you want, man.
We always save our strongest IPA until the band are on their second set. You know, so we are tactical with the beers that we put on. We don't make super strong beers here. I think the strongest beer we got on today is 5.6. Otherwise, people would just be falling over, and then it's got to be a little bit careful with it.
For anybody listening who's never been to Spitting Feathers, this is quite an experience. On a farm, in the countryside, beers are flowing, the band is playing. It's a great place, and it can.
And a beautiful, tasty pizzas as well. While you can look at animals, chat to some wonderful people. Best thing you can do, get your tickets, try it for yourself. One last thing, actually, because you were saying that you're always looking for inspiration, and so it's official now. If we record this, official extending invitation for whole crew at Spitting Feathers to come and join us at Craft Brew Festival, the Christmas edition. Hopefully in Manchester if you can, because that would be more of a idea fuel into seeing what else could be made here, because there's 12 different breweries from all over the country, probably bringing the A game to the festival, which they always are. So the odd collab, maybe?
And it's a perfect opportunity to get your sort of beers to the masses, because at craft brew festivals, the people who are there are not necessarily beer geeks like me and Cam. They're normal, everyday people who just want a good night out and a decent beer.
We had somebody come and asking, what's an IPA? So refreshing. You know what I mean? And then you actually talk to a bar guy or whatever who might not have a clue at whatever place. Welcome to the festival that we sort of run and organize. And it's just, you know, we'll accommodate for everyone. We'll explain. That's why the brewers have the place there, and they will guide them through the journey of not knowing anything about beer to being the geekest of the geeks.
See you there.
Yeah, will do. Cheers. See you soon.
Regular listeners will know that a feature we always enjoy doing is Hype or Tripe. Is a beer essentially good or bad? Does it live up to its reputation? And on this episode, we haven't got one beer, haven't got two beers. We've got a series of 3 beers, 3 pumpkin-inspired beers from Abbeydale Brewing in Sheffield.
And now it's time for Hype or Tripe.
Now, before we go any further, this was your idea, wasn't it, Dave?
It was. I enjoy a pumpkin beer. Whether I enjoy 3 back to back to back, we'll see. But I do enjoy them as a style. I think we've sort of found a bit with the way the podcast evolved now. Hype or Tripe is probably evolved as well, because we like to find a bit different. Now, these beers probably aren't going to be, you know, they're not going to be front and centre on your beer websites or your indie shops and things like that, because they're pumpkin beers. They're not the latest Gold Top or the latest Big Sour or the Big Stout or anything. But I did think they were worth getting stuck into, because you can guarantee that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, pretty much every brewery, or certainly a large swathe of them, are going to release a pumpkin beer. So let's try someone who's actually really committed to it, as we will find out, because this isn't just a one-off thing that Abbeydale do.
No, this has been going on for some time. And it's also worth saying that they were kind enough to send us a box of these beers. We bought one and we got sent one. But also, they pretty much sold out on their own website, so they're obviously very, very popular at source there.
Yeah, and as we will hear in due course, it's been something that's built and built and built. I know Abbeydale have been going a long time, and they are very real ale rooted, and they've adapted and changed, and they still do that. And they've also embraced everything that goes along with what beer is now. But this series, or this first beer, Pilgrim, which is what has inspired it all, is a beer which has been going for 6 or 7 years. I forget exactly which one it is.
And as we'll find out from the guys there at Abbeydale, as time has gone on, they have brought another one in, and more recently another one to accompany it. So they've now got a whole series. Started out just as the one beer, which sort of grew more and more popular and sold out quicker and quicker each year. And now they've got this trilogy. I've just poured mine into the glass. Goodness me. That is spice-tastic, isn't it? There is so much going on there.
That's the unique bit of it, isn't it? Because these beers are pumpkin spice, which essentially, without, you know, I don't think we're telling tales or anything. The main thing is cinnamon.
Yeah, exactly.
That is what these beers essentially are. There's a bit of cinnamon, there's some nutmeg, there's some clove, but cinnamon is the driving thing in these beers. So you get a very cinnamon heavy nose.
I think it's well worth saying at this point that anybody who's drinking these beers or any other pumpkin beers expecting to find big, thick liquids because it's had loads of pumpkin pulp put into it, you're going to be disappointed, I think, largely because it's the spice here that's doing the pumpkin stuff, not actual pumpkins.
Yeah, the nose should make you think of autumn and Halloween and pumpkins and whatnot and all that, and it does. And then the beer itself gives way to being just a really quite classic ale, I would say.
When you bring the glass close to your nose, it's like a sensory overload of all these lovely spices. But if you can not smell and you can just drink it without breathing in, it's a totally different experience because it doesn't taste so much of those spices. It's really very much on the nose with this original Pilgrim.
Yes, 100%. And I have no problem with that. I have had your pumpkin beer in the past where the taste lingers, and it's all right for like half a pint. The second half is often becomes a bit of a struggle because it's getting a bit too sweet, a bit too fragrant almost.
Yeah, I get that completely. I love the smell of this, but I'm not sure I actually want the beer to taste as it smells, and it doesn't, so that's great. This is a perfect chance now to find out more about this beer we're drinking and the other two that have been released by Abbeydale. Here's Laura to tell us plenty more.
Hi, this is Laura Rangeley from Abbeydale Brewery, here to tell you about our trilogy of pumpkin spiced beers, which we like to call Pilgrim and Pals. This series began life in 2017, just with a single beer, so it wasn't really a series at that moment in time, with the beer that's simply called Pilgrim. That's a 5% pumpkin spiced ale, featuring a blend of spices, which we'd love to say is secret, but if you have a can of it and turn it around, you can see them all listed there in the ingredients. It's your classic American-style blend of pumpkin pie spices, and we've kind of decided to make it into a beer that wasn't a gimmick. So the intention is that it's beer first, pumpkin spiced second. We absolutely love it. We've done it every year since 2017, and it's become a little bit of an icon for our brewery. People really look forward to its annual release, and we just think it's a really easy drinking, fairly delicate, but still packs all that flavour that you want to kind of expect from a pumpkin pie. It pairs perfectly with a pudding as well. So yeah, it just kind of increased in popularity over the last, 7 years now, to the point where we simply couldn't make enough of it, which meant that in 2023, last year, we introduced for the first time a variation into this little mini-series, which was called Twilight Pilgrim, which is a dark beer version. So it's a similar kind of theme to the beer, same selection of spices that go in there, but over a stout base. And we added vanilla and lactose as well to make it a pumpkin spice latte themed stout. And then this year, as an all-new edition, we thought, where else can we go with this? We've got the 5% version, we've got a stout version, what else can we do? So we decided to make a stronger version, and Imperial Pilgrim was born. Now, the base recipe for this is almost exactly the same as our regular Pilgrim. It's just brewed to a higher ABV. Again, the same selection of spices that are in there, and we're really super happy with how it's turned out. I think it is definitely reminiscent of the original, as you'd expect, but then it's just bigger and bolder in every way. I think it feels more warming, it's very rounded in flavour, and it's got just a lovely little bit of booziness in the finish that I really love. So yeah, that one's a new addition for this year, but who knows, hopefully it'll be back in 2025 and let us know what else you'd like to see and all the ways that you think we could expand the series, because as with every other year, even with us making about 50% more beer overall across the three that we've done in previous years, it's sold out in record time and is pretty much all gone. Hopefully you should still be able to find it on the shelves of independent retailers nationwide. Do get in touch with us if you'd like a hand in finding where it might have gone to. But yeah, otherwise, let us know if you'd like to be added to our mailing list to find out when it's going to be available again in 2025.
Well, that was great to find out then how these beers came about and how they've evolved. So thanks so much to Laura. We've got Dan Baxter, no relation to Dave B over there, coming up shortly to tell us more.
I'm aware of.
No, well, you never know. To tell us more about Abbeydale in a little while. But before we speak to Dan, let's try the second beer, which you've heard about there. And this is probably the one I'm most keen to try of the three. This is the Pumpkin Spice Latte Stout. I haven't poured it out yet, but Dave's got it. What are you making of it?
So it's a completely different nose, as you'd expect, because it's a stout. Got a really good head, really nice, frothy latte style head, actually. First sort of hit on the nose was a bit roasty, not very pumpkin spice whatsoever, completely different to the original.
It should have that roastiness. That's what I would expect of it. And now you're going in and tasting it now. I haven't got that far yet. I'm going to presume, because there's lactose here, there's a touch of sweetness to it as well.
There is. And they also put vanilla in there, and you get that without it being super, super sweet. I'd say what they've nailed here is the coffee element of it, the latte side of it. Pumpkin spice, I think, and perhaps it's just because we just had the other one, is possibly a bit lacking in the sense that I don't necessarily get. I get hints of it. I wouldn't just say it's a milk stout or it's a coffee stout. There is something else going on, and I think it is those spices, and perhaps it's just been tuned down slightly, which I think probably works because if you do like a pumpkin spice latte, for example, you don't want it to be super coffee and cinnamon.
Yeah, that is sort of an overload situation, isn't it?
This is really nice. I really like this.
I've just poured it out. Lovely head on it, same as you. That head I talk about sometimes, where it's a lovely sort of coffee brown colour. Love that. Smells great.
Do you get any cinnamon or spice pumpkin?
It's roasty rather than spicy, but because we're drinking these three together, that works for me. I've just had the spice from the first one.
If you now had it again, you'd be a bit like, well, it's just a dark version of the light beer. Like, what's the point?
What I'm going to imagine is going to happen here is that we've had the first beer, the original Pilgrim. We've got all the spices and the aromas from that. Now they've brought it down a bit. I think when we go in for the third beer in a bit, which is the 8% version, I think we're going to get those spices ramped up again with that one. That's how I'm expecting this to go.
I really like that. I was with you. It was the one that most intrigued me, but it's really...
That's very good.
It is, isn't it?
People will know if they've listened to all of our episodes. If you haven't, you need to go back and listen to them. I love any kind of milk stout, and this is there for me. This is really good. And what I like is that there is lactose in there, but you can't really detect it. It's not like creamy sweet or anything.
That's interesting. So that's interesting that you'd class that you would class that as a milk stout.
If you put in lactose into it, that's what I think. I think it's then become a milk stout.
Interesting, because I don't think of that as a milk stout.
Oh, okay.
I think of it as sort of what they've gone for with this latte stout thing. To me, it doesn't quite taste like a milk stout. It's got more going on than that. Yeah. I find milk stouts can be a bit
one note.
Yes.
Yeah, this certainly. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it isn't a milk stout, but I just think pumpkin spice latte, coffee, cream, sweetness. Milk stout. That's the sort of route I took with that.
I don't think that's unfair. As we've said before, like beer is all about its opinions, and it's what you get from it. We had it no end with Kohai Nelson, didn't we? To the point that you got to enjoying it, and I made my peace of it. But this is really, really good.
Yeah. This gets the Daftaboutcraft seal of approval from both of us. We've each usually got something negative or positive to say, but I think we're fully positive with this. This is really good.
Well, I'm sort of crashing through as someone who has a young child is to, make sure I get all...
Are you opening the next one already? Oh my goodness.
I'm trying to taste all the beers quick enough that I can give the listeners a fair assessment of them, rather than back in the old days in episodes 1 to, 15, where we used to do this at 8 o'clock at night and be still doing it at midnight. Like now time is of the essence.
I love that phrase that you use sometimes, peek behind the curtain, because that really is a peek behind the curtain. We used to finish work about 8 o'clock and then log on, and we'd be drinking till in lockdown time, 1, maybe 2 in the morning sometimes. So we'd record the episode and drink all our beers and then go and find some more beers to drink because we obviously hadn't had enough. But we used to record the whole episode in one hit, didn't we? So we'd have our Brew to Me beers, we'd have our interview beers, our Hypoid Tripe beers, and then some more as well. And why not?
They were good times. It's
heady days. You can't even think of those now, can you?
No, but then at the same time, the way it works now, where we do put together episodes a bit piecemeal style, where we jump on and off, both got busy lives. That's still enjoyable because it's nice to look forward to the nights when we do come on and do it, because it's a nice release and it's talking about beer and it's enjoying beer, and it's sort of the podcast and beer for me should be about anyway.
Absolutely. I'm still on the spice latte here. You're on the next one already.
Yeah, so I've now jumped because I want to just, as I say, taste all three, and then I think I already know potentially which one I'm going back to. But Imperial Pilgrim. So this is, as Laura explained, essentially it's just a beefed up version of the original Pilgrim recipe. And it's also worth saying, actually, the original Pilgrim and Twilight Pilgrim, both 5%. Wouldn't say either particularly taste of it.
No, I think maybe the Twilight Pilgrim, the stout, tastes a little bit stronger than the other one, but that's just a personal thing.
But this Imperial version is 8%, which isn't too mad, I don't think. I don't mind that. So for me, I'm thinking because it's 8%, it's unrealistic to think it'd be getting up to that sort of barley wine type taste. But what I'm wondering if it's going to be, when the dipper was really popular?
Yep.
It's not as popular now, but you used to get the ones that were almost a bit more West Coast in style because they'd be a bit more astringent and that sort of caramelly, but also a bit bitter and strong and just that kind of taste. That's what I'm wondering if this is what we're going to get here.
I poured this out and the colour is quite similar to the original Pilgrim, but a bit more orange.
Yes.
And now,
darker.
I'm with you. I get that. Are we going to go a little bit West Coasty here? What is nice is that they haven't succumbed to temptation and gone double digit with this, because they could easily have, I imagine, made this 10, 11, 12%.
They could have done. I'm glad they didn't. You said, I don't know if I want it to taste all pumpkin spice and everything.
Well, what I said is I imagine that the 8%er really piles on the pumpkin spice, and I've just had a mouthful.
Oh my.
And it does. Actually, that's very nice. I can imagine standing around a bonfire with this.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was literally about to say the same sentence as you.
Oh my goodness. We were actually going to go to a bonfire or two, and I'm very tempted to get another can of this to take with me, because this would be awesome.
It works, doesn't it? Yeah, fair play to Abby. They have absolutely captured the season and the essence of these beers, I think.
What can happen with these amplified versions of beer sometimes is that they can be a bit, do I really want this? But this actually, I've just had a couple of mouthfuls there while you were talking, and I just want to go back and have some more. So let's drink it and we can listen to Dan tell us more about the business.
Hi there guys, my name's Dan Baxter. I'm one of the company directors for Abbeydale Brewery and also now Sheffield Beer Works EOT Limited, which is quite cool. So yeah, Abbeydale Brewery started its life in 1996 with Patrick Morton and his dad Hugh. They bought Unit 8 Hazelwood Road and some second-hand large brewery pots and pans, and they started kicking out some of their favourite beers, namely the kind of pale ales of the world. Some of Pat's previous successful home brews that he made. The Willamette hop was one that we took a real liking to. That American hop now goes into moonshine to this day and is one of our best-selling beers. We produce, so we've got moonshine, deception, absolution, Daily Bread, Black Mass as our main core beers. The real unique thing about us, we like to think, is we produce a new beer every week. We very much cater to the specials market. We now produce roughly around 200 brewers' barrels a week. Back in my day when I started about 17, 18 years ago, that figure was right down at about 75 brewers' barrels a week. We've kind of grown organically from there. As units around Unit 8 become available, we've kind of scooped them up and bagged them as ours before anyone else can get hold of them.
Alongside the heritage range led by Moonshine, which Dan's just talked us through, we also have a range called the Brewers Emporium, which is the place where we can showcase what's new, what's innovative, and the kinds of things that our brewers really want to make. That was led by our beer that's called Heathen, that's one of our biggest sellers now. That's a 4.1% American Pale, which is single hopped with Mosaic. So whilst that beer's only been with us for the past sort of 7 or 8 years, it's kind of doing the same thing that Moonshine was doing back in 1996. It's taking something that's fresh and new and exciting and turning that into exactly the kind of beer that we all want to drink. And I think it's fair to say for both of those beers that they're standing the test of time. But yeah, within that range, we can bring out, styles from an easy drinking pale ale to a saison, or we did a mild this year. We use experimental hops in some of our releases. all the way through to pastry stouts, dippers, you name it, we can probably find a home for it within the Brewers Emporium. Alongside that, we've also got our particularly small batch Funk Dungeon project, which is led by our brewer Jim Rangeley, who was recently named the Brewer of the Year at the Brewers' Choice Awards, which was really exciting. So the Funk Dungeon is a mixed fermentation, barrel aging and souring project. It forms a teeny tiny part of our production, but these beers, there's a lot of time, patience, care and thought that's gone into making them. Do look them up, they're really exciting. We've just had a blood orange sour that we made in conjunction with a local gin distillery to us available. They make a Moricello, which is like limoncello but with oranges, but they only use the outside of the oranges, so they have all the kind of the fruity bit in the middle left over. So we put some in a barrel and made a delicious sour beer out of it. We've got a Bretted Best Bitter in that series as well, that we made with Balance, and all sorts on the way. Heritage beers, making use of the heritage grains which are starting to come through and become kind of looked after and reinvigorated by our maltsters. And yes, some really exciting things coming up in that project too, so do look out for it.
It's really good, isn't it?
But I think it's testament to them that they've done 3 beers. And obviously I ranted about how people are doing those things where it's a small and normal and an extra. And actually, this is what it should be like.
Yeah. Got a real insight there into what Abbeydale do, about their business. And we were getting right stuck in to what is actually a really, really wonderful beer. And I think we're both agreed on that, aren't we?
Yeah, I think I would have one in isolation, which is what I think you should have for an 8%. You probably don't want to be chucking 3 back in one go, do you?
Well, you just did.
Well, I've chucked bits of 3 beers back in isolation. But what I think is most impressive about this series of beers, rather than just lowering and raising the gravity to give yourself 3 beers but with the same hop combination and essentially the same profile, but one will taste a bit lighter, one will taste a bit stronger. You've got the same base recipe of Pilgrim, so you've got a very good starting point. They've made it into a stout, a completely different beer, and then they've made an imperial version of it, but not gone OTT. But what they have done is created a really different beer again. It's like getting the nose and it just follows it all the way through. And that's to be applauded. Like, that's what it should be for a series for me. You should be bringing different elements, not just different percentages.
I think also that we have tried all 3 in the series there back to back, and actually I think it's quite a good way to do it. Each one has sort of picked the pace up a little bit. You think, wow, this is great, and you have the next one, you think, wow, this is even better.
Yeah.
And when you get to the end of the series, you don't want to go back to the start, you want to keep going. Where we go next? Give us a 4th and a 5th one, please.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, if you go back to the start now, it might be a bit like, oh, well, I want to go back to the middle or the end. So
it is a great way to do it. Have them in order. Just enjoy the experience because it's great. So what's your favourite of the trio? Which one?
It's still the stout. Pilgrim is my favourite. I really do like the Imperial. And as you say, round a bonfire with a hot dog off the barbecue type thing and maybe some fireworks, although if you've got dogs, as we both do, they're annoying. So I don't like fireworks in that sense anymore. But that whole bonfire night experience and everything, like the Imperial is tailor-made for
Oh
it.
my goodness. I'm going to get a couple more cans of that and have them when we do our bonfire night celebrations. Absolutely. I think it's perfect.
This is a brewery with so much experience at its fingertips, and it really shows. They know what they're doing. I always remember them from when I used to live in Leicester, being a Sheffield-based brewery. They were fairly easy to find, but this is going back now over 10 years, and their marketing has changed. But their pump clips were some of the most boring, traditional-looking pump clips you would ever see. I had a running joke with a friend about how they just look quite naff, to be brutally honest. But the beer was always superb, and it was always a bit like, you guys are hiding your light under a bushel here. Like, you're doing banging beers, but the pump art isn't going to really be turning anyone onto them. They've had a rebrand in the time since I'm talking about, and it's very different now. And you can spot an Abbeydale beer actually now quite easily.
Yeah, the artwork is actually pretty clever. When I put up a post just recently of these 3 cans, and they're all quite different, yet also quite the same. They've got the same theme running through them, which really works. Pleased we did this. I love a pumpkin beer now. I love it. Let's go and find some more pumpkin beers. But are they all as good as this? That's the question.
I think you might have had the bar set quite high now, so don't perhaps dive into insert generic brewery doing a pumpkin beer, because it might not be as good.
But there is another sort of strand to the Abbeydale story at the moment, because quite recently their whole business model has changed, and it is worth talking about this. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's not us talk about it, we can listen to Dan talking about it.
So Pat and Sue Morton, the owners of the brewery, have for the last several years been looking at retirement and succession planning and what's going to happen going forward with the business that built up. The option that we ran with is for the business to become an employee-owned trust. We've set up an umbrella company called Sheffield Beerworks Limited. They now own 100% of the shares of Abbeydale Brewery, and in a sense, all the staff here that have helped drive the company forward over the last decade are now all owners of the business in pretty much all sense of the word.
I think it's worth saying as well that a lot of the staff that are here now have worked here for really quite a long time, between the brewery and our pub, the Rising Sun, which also is part of Sheffield Beerworks now. There are over 50 members of staff, but between us we've got over 300 years of experience of working for the business. Dan, you already mentioned that you've been here for coming on to 18 years. I've been here for 9, and there's a lot of people that have been here for longer than me too, or started around the same time. So we've got a really committed team. I think it's almost just a formalisation really of the kind of ways in which we've always worked anyway. We've always been able to put ideas on the table, bring new concepts forward, and really feel like part of the business. But now that's legally true as well.
Yeah. One of the things that I particularly like about our business is the input provided by everyone. And when we notice a trend that's happening in the market, we do all we can to see if we can also diversify into this thing. So 7 to 8 years ago, we noticed we didn't have a lager. We put plans in motion to create our own lager, which in a brewery full of real ale enthusiasts, creating a lager was no easy task. We now have one, and it's a really good seller for us now. Diversifying into can, into keg, the choice to go to export, all these different markets. Well, we've noticed over the last 4 years, 3 to 4 years, the growing trend of no and low. This is definitely something that we wanted to look in going forward, and I don't think there's really a way to hide from this. Creating an alcohol-free beer within our brewery right now wasn't particularly feasible. We wouldn't end up with a consistently saleable product. But we'd put some research into this American concept called hop water, which is a way of showcasing one of our strengths, which is our hop store. We've got some good trading relationships with our hop merchants. Some of our favourite hops, like Mosaic and Nelson Sauvin in particular, we can show off what this hop can do in its rawest form with sparkling water as an alcohol-free alternative to beer, 0.0%. With Laura's magic wand over the marketing of this, we found that it had some serious health benefits as well.
Well, that just gave us the opportunity to drink even more of their wonderful pumpkin beers. But really interesting to hear about how the business model has changed at Abbeydale.
I think it's really interesting that this is sort of the first, not the first instance, or what's probably the first explicit instance of succession planning. But when you're a brewery like in Abbeydale, which has been going for so much longer, and you do want to get, and we had it when we talked to Durham. Obviously, there was succession planning happened there. You do have to think of these things, and it's really interesting to see that rather than it just sort of go to one individual or a board or everyone who's put all the time, blood, sweat and tears into it, how better to keep everyone into it than making it staff owned.
People in the beer industry generally love what they do, so if you get a chance to own part of the company that you work for, how perfect is that?
When you think of a brewery like this, I think you and I would probably, without knowing, would have thought, oh, Sheffield-based brewery, been around a long time, there's probably,
Yeah, some big money man behind them somewhere.
Yeah, or perhaps it's a family thing, but it's just going to be a family thing. Like, you'd never peg it as what it is, which is this completely employee-owned business. And
hopefully this might be a way that more breweries go in the future as well. I really hope so. We both meet so many people in this industry now who they live and breathe what they do, so to then be a part owner in some small way of the business they work for is such a game changer for them.
it's just that relinquishing of control. I think we speak to people when it's them or them and their partner doing it, and it's like usually when we get towards the tail end of it's usually the interview tail end of a conversation talk, and they sort of go, I'd like to get someone else in to do this and that, but yeah, it's giving up a little piece of the baby type thing. Yeah. So it's probably where you get to it's no longer an option just to do it all yourself. You've got to bring in other people. But if you bring in people who are just as passionate as you are,
if all your staff own a little bit of it, you're going to get the most out of them, aren't you?
It's certainly an interesting, and doesn't on the face of it, certainly this example, look to be a bad model, but I'm sure it has its pros and its cons, like all business models do.
Well, yeah, but look, going back to these 3 beers, I'm very impressed by what Abbeydale are doing here. Abbeydale are one of those breweries that, they're there. We know they're good and they're consistent, but I don't search out their beers necessarily. But having had these 3, I think I will.
Yeah, it's fair. I think they're just one of those examples. You think how long they've been going in the Sheffield area, but I imagine Sheffield keeps them going. Like, they don't need to necessarily do all that much more because they're sort of a cornerstone of
an institution in South Yorkshire. Yeah.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for, and it eluded me. Yeah, an institution.
This feature of the podcast is called Hype or Tripe. This is not tripe. This is hype all the way. Each beer on its own, well worthy of the hype tag, to be honest. They just get better and better as you go through the series of the 3 beers. Hugely impressive. I was at the Brewers Congress in London a few weeks ago. Met lots of people while I was there. One of the people I met was a guy called Tim Weaver, who goes by the name of the Brand Weaver. He will sort your brand out if you've got brand problems, and he's going to tell us all about it because he joins us now on the podcast. How you doing, Tim?
I'm great, Dave. Thanks so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
That's all right. Now, I said to you when I saw you at Brewers Congress, I said, if you win an award, you can come on. And you went and won an award. What did you win?
We won Brewery Rebrand of the Year with Vale Brewery in Buckinghamshire. It was a massive win for us to be recognised against really stiff competition. You had your St Austell's Proper Job that was done by the Thirst Agency, and they're a big name in the drinks branding agency. So for little old us to have the kind of David and Goliath moment, yeah, it was very exciting.
There's nothing better than that, is it? When you take on the big guns and you beat them, it's great.
Yeah, there was a lot of fist pumping in the air. And equally, I had the incentive that if I was going to win, then I did indeed get to talk to you again. So
yeah, that's right.
I had to win.
No, it was written in the stars, wasn't it? So we thought we'd get you on the podcast and we can talk a bit about branding in craft beer. And, there's some great breweries out there, really good breweries. But can you tell our listeners, and the brewers listening to this as well, because many of them do, why good beer alone is not enough? Why you need good branding?
It's a common question, like more so than you'd think, that a lot of brewers that I meet, they have this field of dreams mentality, like if I brew it, they will come. But unfortunately, it's not the case. You can have the best damn beer in the world, but if people don't know about it, if they're not drawn to it, if it doesn't stand out, then they're not going to give you the time of day. When you're dealing with direct to consumer, like you have to have a story that people recognize and engage with, or your friend would have had to recognize and engage with it to then tell you, or you need to have a powerful enough kind of USP or narrative to get into a subscription box for people to find out about you. And the same thing goes for a story to be taken on by a trade, to be featured on a pump. Like, it's no good having we've got quality beer with quality ingredients, or the throwaway lines of, we've got a great community, or it's an authentic brewery. Because every other brewery, if not all of them, say that in one way or another. And so it's so important these days to be able to really clearly communicate what makes you different, not only from a visual side of things, but verbally be able to tell the story of your brewery so people go, I get it, I like it, I want to know more.
So what happens if you're a brewer, you've got a brewery, been doing it in your garage for a couple of years, and you don't really think you've got a story? You've been making beer, you've just been stood in your garage making beer. How can you make that brand come alive for people?
I look at 3 main areas when creating a brand story or building a brand. And so, of course, the first thing you've got is the secret sauce of the brewery itself. And so brewers have to look back at their history, like what led them to the point that they are now. If it's a case of, we were brewing in the garage, I had an internship, or me and my mate did something over, COVID, then All right, that's pretty standard, but is there anything else that's slightly different to the story? You can look at the actual people involved in the process. What's their history? Do they have a different spin, a different take? Even the location. I work with breweries, which is supposedly the wettest place in the UK, and that has its great, a great narrative to tell. So that's one aspect of it. Secondly, you've then got to think about the people who are actually drinking the beer, or the people who you want to drink your beer. Because again, there's loads of different punters out there. You've got your cask market, you've got your keg, you've got your craft beer lovers, you've got the occasional drinker, you've got the people who look for more experiential pieces or no enthusiasts now. So you've got to know who you're trying to appeal to, because you're going to talk in a certain way, you're going to say a certain thing, you're going to prioritize what's so important about your story to appeal to them. And third and finally, you've got to look at the competition. It's all well and good saying, oh yeah, well, of course our beer is better because X, Y, and Z. But it's not just standing on the shoulders of like, well, this is our beer versus them. It's the story they're telling. It's the channels that they're on, kind of the finish and presentation. Because if they look more professional, they sound more professional, then people are going to have more trust in that brewery than they would yours if it looks like it's been designed on the back of a fag packet. So you take those three elements and combine it together, which gives you a really strong proposition.
So are you saying then that even if your product isn't the best product out there, if your beer isn't the best, with the right branding, you can still make a big impact on the market?
Look at Carlsberg, look at Carling.
Well, yeah.
Very
good point.
Quality beer doesn't sell. Quality branding alongside quality beer really sells, because it's about grabbing attention.
You won this award at the Brewers Congress for Vale Brewery. What did you do for them? How did you change their branding? What was it before and what did you turn it into?
The Vale project was like a full brand strategy. It's really important for people to understand that when we say about creating brands, it's not a new logo. It's not just a new can design or a clip design.
That's a really good point, because I think a lot of people, it is a logo, it's a presence on Instagram, and that's where it ends. But it's so much more than that.
Exactly. And so the strategy side of things, it started with those three areas of research: the brewery strengths, the audience, their competitors. We then took all of that to create a new set of messages and create a purpose for the brewery. So there's so much research out there that proves either purpose-driven brands or entertainment-driven brands really succeed. So an entertainment-driven brand, you look at the likes of Liquid Death in the market, they're kind of breaking all the rules. They're standing out because they entertain and they challenge. Purpose-driven is more like your Toms of the world, where they donate shoes for every shoe's bought and so on and so forth. So we developed a purpose, a core mission and vision, which then helped to drive the direction of the brewery and help create the choices, influence the choices that they were going to make. That then evolved into tone of voice. Like, how does the brewery speak? Again, this is a fundamental thing that so many breweries miss out on. Like, Brewdog used to be pretty good at it. If you would shut your eyes and listen to someone read a piece of Brewdog copy, it had that slightly kind of rebellious, anarchic tone to it. Now, of course, that's been dulled down these days because it's got much bigger. It needs to be more wildly acceptable. But I say to clients, like, imagine if Yoda opened up a brewery, right? You wouldn't have to read the words, "It's the Yoda brewery." You'd be able to tell just by the way that they were talking. And that's the power of the tone of voice. And again, with the rise of ChatGPT and everyone creating blooming AI-generated copy, which is normally spelt with American spellings anyway and sounds the same, it's so easy to stand out with your own tone of voice. So we do the tone of voice. Then we created a battle plan. It's like, right, we know everything we need to know about the audience, how to appeal to them, how to stand out to them. This is how we roll it out across your social media, across like touch points and customer experiences within the brewery. This is how we boost the beer club. These are the unique things that we can do for the brewery membership that reinforce what we've done with this brand. And then finally, we moved on to the visuals, because it's only at that point that you go, right, we know exactly what's right.
It's really interesting. There's so much involved before you get to the visual side of it. It's like we said, most people just think that branding is the visuals.
It's so common that way. But the problem is, if you talk to a brewery owner or any business owner and you go, oh, what would you like to do with your brand? And they'll go, oh, well, I like green and I like horses. Can we do something with green and horses? And it's just based on, I like it. Like a good brand, like I say to my clients that I will never tell you The reason for doing something is because I liked it. It needs to be supported and reinforced by everything that you've done and reflect the brand that you've created. And the guys at Vale knew what was great about their brewery, and they had an inkling as to how it should be positioned, but it was only cemented once we put the walls around it and went, yeah, we know everything about the consumer. We can create something that's going to appeal to them, because it's not the flaming skulls illustrative market that they were appealing to. It's more your kind of, we created a persona called Charles, who's your classic, cash drinker, cash mark kind of guy. So we knew how we had to appeal to him. We knew how we couldn't scare him off. And so our artwork was tailored to appeal to them, but whilst introduce a younger audience as well.
What have they noticed as a result of the rebranding?
So caveat, I can't claim this is all because of the rebrand.
Well, no, if it's happened since you did the rebrand, you take the credit for it, I would.
Yeah. So the guys are incredibly ambitious with the brand. So they've become SALSA accredited as well alongside the rebrand, which has been phenomenal. But for example, 2 days after launching the rebrand, or almost like soft launching it, they'd secured 75K extra annual revenue off the back of it. One was a direct inquiry without them reaching out because they'd seen the presenter document that we put together. And another one was they received the presenter and wanted to pick up a contract with them. We then had upsells off the back of it, where originally trades would have taken maybe 2 of their 7 core range. But when they saw them together and saw how they worked as a set and saw how they appealed to every different type of drinker and knew the story behind it, they were giving all 7 a shot. The growth is phenomenal. The guys have done incredibly well, and they've received national press. Of course, the recognition within the award, again, is phenomenal. Social media growth. The brewery membership has been running for, I think it's around 18 months now, and they've got 264 members, which is fantastic.
I love the fact that it's 264. That kind of shows how invested you are in this.
Yeah, I love the brewery. I love the guys. I love every client that I work with. I think working with breweries is something really special because you become so invested, or at least I do, because you want these guys to succeed. You know how easy it is to fail in the industry as well. So it's about giving everyone the best possible chance.
Had you got some sort of beery background, or did you just enjoy beer? How did you move your branding expertise into the beer market?
It's not a beery background. It's a creative background. I've been in the creative industry for 17, 18 years. So I worked in various agencies. And before the Brand Weaver, I was a creative director of an agency, 50 plus employees working all over the globe. But it was in a niche sector. We worked for the independent school market. So Harrow, Repton, Dubai British School, Harvard, Westlake out in the USA, big names we were doing branding for. And so this was website design, social strategies, identities, photography, the works. But I couldn't do that for all of my life. And so I started the Brand Weaver. And because I'd been in the school industry for so long, my little black book was just dominated by school contacts. I had nothing else. And so when I started to build the Brand Weaver up, I went back to basics, and I went back to my phone book, and I went back to my mates and the things I liked, and started to reach out again. And so what do I like? I like beer. Who was I going to reach out to? Breweries. At the same time, barbecue brands, foodies, bands, health and fitness, the tattoo industry.
You see, once you get to beer, there's a lot of sort of spin-offs from that are connected to the beer industry, aren't there?
Massively so. And so once the Brand Weaver was running for a while, I knew the success of niching down. And so I went, realistically, what's the industry that I've loved helping the most? And where do I think I can provide the most value? And it was the brewery sector. And so then it was like, right, breweries are what I'm going to do. And haven't looked back yet.
I bet there's people listening to this now thinking, I want to get this guy involved. How can we do it? So if anybody is interested in using your services, how do they go about it?
You can find me all over the web, but the website is thebrandweaver.co.uk. You find the Vale case study on there. You'll see what we did. You can actually see the results of it. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'd encourage you to find me on LinkedIn, Tim Weaver, or search for the Brand Weaver. I post content there daily for breweries. I've also got an email newsletter that goes out every Friday. So I post branding hints and tips specifically for brewery owners. I create a load of freebies in terms of how to identify your perfect punter, like I was talking about, or how to do a really decent competitor analysis. And there's a video that I create and a worksheet you can download. So even if people don't want to give me money, I've created a load of resources that people can just do for themselves because I want to help.
I've seen some of this stuff, actually. It's really interesting because I get your mailer. It's well worth signing up to.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that.
I feel as though we've only scratched the surface, but it's a really good introduction to what you do. Let's get you back at some point in the future to talk some more about it.
I'd love to. We can pick a topic and just wax lyrical for hours.
So you know what you've got to do to come back on, don't you?
Got to win another award.
Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.
Well, there we are. We're done and dusted. Another episode is over, but fear not, we have a bonus episode coming out soon. We mentioned it earlier. Only with Love from Lewis in Sussex. We'll be talking to Ben from that brewery, and that will be released in a few days' time. So look out for that. Really fascinating chat. And then our next full episode will be released towards the end of November. We'll catch you soon.